Welcome to Figure Eight, where we feature inspiring stories of women entrepreneurs who have grown their businesses to 7 and 8 figures revenue. If you're in the mix of growing a bigger business, these stories are for you. Join us as we explore where the tough spots are, how to overcome them, and how to prepare yourself for the next portion of the climb. I'm your host, Julie Ellis. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and a growth and leadership coach who co-founded, grew, and exited an 8-figure business. This led me to exploring why some women achieve great things. And that led to my book, Big Gorgeous Goals. Let's explore the systems, processes, and people that help us grow our businesses to new heights. If you're interested in growing your business, this podcast will help. Now, let's get going. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Figure Eight. I am your host, Julie Ellis, and today I have with me Hillary Parnell. Hillary is the owner of the Academy for the Performing Arts and Preschool for the Arts in Apex, North Carolina, and she has founded 2 other dance-adjacent companies. She's taught over 10,000 children, grown her revenue to well over $2 million, and she has also coached hundreds of small business owners. She believes that she wants to make the most of the leadership, mentorship that are available to her and to help others not make nearly as many mistakes as she has. So welcome, Hillary.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here.
Thanks. I'm so glad to have you today. Why don't we start off with you telling me a little bit about the Academy for the Performing Arts and the Preschool?
Yeah. So I started the business when I was at the ripe age of 21, basically right out of college. I tried to have a real job for about 8 months and realized very quickly that was not for me. Um, I come from a fairly entrepreneurial background. My dad, my uncle, we've have a lot of people in our family that were willing to support me doing whatever I wanted to do. And oddly enough, it was down to a cleaning company or a dance studio. That's it, the question was
Kind of
not whether or
different.
not, yeah, it wasn't whether I would do it. It was what I was going to do. And I had grown up dancing. I am not a professional dancer, never was, didn't even dance in college. But I had grown up my whole life. It felt like family. It felt like the right move. So we started when I was 21. I was a very arrogant 20 something in those early years and tried just to do it all myself and to figure it all out as I went and thought I knew better than all the people that I should have been listening to. And despite that, I managed to crawl out of debt and get to a point about 10 years later where we were surviving. And it was just a really long road. And now here we are 22 years later, and very profitable and doing great things for my staff and my people and our families. And my mission now is to help others get there a lot faster. Learn from the mistakes I made and listen to the wiser people that went before you and really try to get them to this point, because this point is amazing. I love this point. I wanted to be here 10 years ago and I just didn't know how. So my goal now is to help others do that.
That's a really great part, I think, is that give back piece, because especially when we're doing it by ourselves, it feels pretty lonely and
Right.
hard.
Yes, for sure. It is very lonely. And I think the the problem is we don't even know where sometimes to go for the help. And getting that message out there is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So your business is close to my heart. I don't know if you know, my university degree's in dance. And so I spent my life also in the dance studio when I was growing up. And so I think it's a fascinating business because a lot of people cannot figure out how to scale a business the way you have in your industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the average dance studio in the world, actually, because I work with global studios, is about 150 students with about a revenue of around 200 to 250,000 a year gross.
Right. Right. And that's before you pay rent, teachers, yourself, all the things.
And most studio owners, most business owners in this and other passion based small businesses don't even, do it for as a hobby, as a glorified hobby, not even paying themselves or paying themselves a livable wage. So that has been a challenge for sure.
Yeah. And why do you think you were able to sort of break beyond that? What was it about you that allowed you to build the business you have today?
Um, at the beginning, I was that person. I martyred for a long time. Um, my dad, to be honest, was probably my driving force behind. In year 3, he said, "You have to buy a house, and we will pay you enough to buy the house." And in year 5, you have to get a new car. You and it can't just be a clunker. And I fought that hard. I didn't want to buy a nice car because I felt that people would resent me for it, or they would think they were paying too much, or that I should be doing more if I had a nice car. And the stories that I go back and think about are fascinating to me because I lived that life that I talk to so many small business owners about. And it is very much half of what I've found business owners to be like. The other half are like, I'm going to make money. I want to be profitable from day one. I'm going to take 100% of what I can. And that's why I do this. But when you're talking about passion based industries, and especially, not to be completely sexist, but a lot of women based industries, you run into that problem. And so having my dad in my ear, yeah, early on got me to a point where I knew I needed to at least make some money to know my value. And then finding the right people, finding masterminds, finding other groups of individuals who unapologetically made money. And listening to speakers and reading books and understanding that the only way to actually fulfill the passion and to provide the vision for my customers is through profitability. And once I made that mental mind shift years ago, it just took off from there. Now my mission is to provide a space for my staff that they can make money. And once I put that on them and realized that what I'm doing is to build a place where they have career paths, and again, not something you see in the dance industry, um, it makes making money a good thing, not something that we should be afraid of.
Yeah, so much of what people do in the dance industry is piecing together bits to
Mhm.
make themselves a living.
Yep. Yeah, whatever's left over at the end of the month, I'll take. Not feeling comfortable marking up things that come through your business. Um, believing that your self-worth and what you're providing isn't valuable. And in the end of the day, it is more valuable than so much that our parents pay for. We're providing life skills, we're providing a home, we're providing um, a safe place for kids. And we're their mentors. I'm sure you have people that you remember from growing up that you'll never forget, that taught you how to be you. That's worth so much more, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, for me as a kid, the dance studio was more home than probably almost anywhere else in my life.
Right? Exactly.
The
So,
friends I had there, the teachers, the community that we had, that was so open and accepting. And it
mhm,
was sort of like if you worked hard, you moved up and you advanced. And so there was a great work ethic, I think, that comes out of having dance training as a kid and having that kind of community.
absolutely. Yep. Work ethic, perseverance, dedication, discipline. I mean, the list goes on. Self-confidence, being able to be on stage, and in front of people is a huge life skill that you get from dance. So we just need to know our value.
Yeah, and I think it teaches you about sort of the value of
Mhm.
failure as well because nobody can do anything the first
Yeah.
time around, right? So you're working to perfect, a trick or a move or a class or, something and it's a progressive journey. So, I think you learn a lot about what it takes to actually be
Yep.
successful.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm interested in, how what were the resistance points that you met as you grew the business?
Yes, they're still coming. I don't think they ever end. Most of the resistance was that initial phase, which I'm sure every small business owner goes through, of removing yourself from the day to day. You start obviously working on the business instead of in the business, but there is a hefty transition period when once you make that decision to actually being able to accomplish it. And I would say that took a good 3 to 5 years of dedicated initiative of how can this be the last time I do this and how can I pass it to somebody else. And I say that a lot in my kind of deliberate training of staff and bringing people into the fold. So that took a long time. I also, right around that time, had 4 kids in 5 years. So I was pregnant. I was trying to, hold it all together. I had my kids in the office and pack and plays, just adding another layer to the complexity of being a small business owner, especially again, a woman. Um, and and so that was the first big move. I was able to make that mindset shift and really start pulling myself out of teaching. I was teaching 6 days a week, and so basically running 2 full-time jobs, trying to run the business during the day, somehow feed children in the mix of it, and teach all night. And so pulling myself out of the day-to-day was step one. That transition happened. And then there was probably another 5 or 6 years of kind of just leaning into getting systems in place and making sure that not only was I not doing them, but I wasn't initiating them. I wasn't making sure they were happening. Somebody else was taking ownership of these processes and systems, and empowering my team to really step up and not expect me to be the one taking the phone calls from the parents or putting out all the fires or again initiating things. That was a big transition. Is like the calendar should not be mine to run. You know your job, now do it.
And what was it like letting go though of, teaching? I mean, people often start businesses. Yours was a little different maybe in the origin, but people start often because they like teaching and they don't want to leave the studio or they don't want to give up, whatever reason it is they started their business, they don't want to give it up.
Sure.
Was it hard for you?
It was somewhat, probably less so than others I've worked with. I do love to teach. I've come to realize I'm a teacher at heart in my soul, which is why I continue to do what I do. Um, but where most people have the issue is less about the passion I have found, and it's more about the ego and and believing that someone else can actually do this as well, if not better than me. Whatever it is, graphic design, running a program, being the manager, it doesn't matter what your industry is. Um, most entrepreneurs have a big ego and we believe that we do it better than anybody else. And I actually do this exercise when I'm speaking and working with a large group. I'll ask one of the members in the audience, what's something that you feel like you and only you can do in your business? And for whatever reason in our industry, a lot of it comes down to like scheduling. Like only I can build the fall schedule or the recital lineup or whatever it is. It doesn't even matter. Um, and it's because of all the nuances that you've learned over time and the experiences that you've gained that help you know how to do that intuitively in your brain. And then I'll say, okay, who else in this room of 200, 300 people thinks they're the only one who can create the schedule in their business? And 300 hands go up. It's like, well, if all 300 of you are good at this, does it not stand to reason that somebody else in your business can also be good at this? And then it's like, oh, maybe I don't have to be the one making the fall schedule. And that would free up 2 weeks of my life. So really just helping people understand that. And I did not have as big of an ego because I knew I wasn't the best at it. I'm great with little kids. I am a good teacher. I'm good at classroom management, but I'm not the best dancer. I'm not creating the best advanced contemporary pieces. So finding people who could do it better than me wasn't that hard. And I was able to fire myself pretty quickly from that. So got out of that.
And thankfully,
Yes. 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 It was great to be able to not work 14-hour days anymore.
absolutely, because that's not a sustainable pace and for small children, like that is definitely a recipe for burnout.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what is it like now?
So now, my current schedule to start is I work every day. I do come to work. I love my studio. I love the energy here more so than my house. My house, I would get so distracted. I'm not good there. So I have an office. It's small, and I come here every day from about 7:45 after I drop my kids off at school until 3. and I work on all kinds of things. I meet with my upper level staff members once, so some of them once a week, some of them once a month, depending on what their role is. I do a lot of coaching calls. I coach for the Dance Studio Owners Association, which is a global network of studios. So I do that as like on a contract basis. And I work on my other ventures, my other online businesses, things like that. And then at 3 o'clock, I pick my kids up from school, and I'm a mom now until I drive them to all of their places for many hours in the car, and then I'm in bed by 9. It's it's a beautiful life. I love it so much. So,
That's awesome. Um, and I think what's also interesting is the sort of dance adjacent companies that you've founded as you've looked at revenue and ways to expand revenue within what you're doing.
yes, yes.
What can you tell me about those?
Well, part of it, it's twofold. Part of it comes from the fact, like I said, that there is somewhat of a limit to the revenue a dance studio can make, where it's a low ticket sale. Luckily, it's recurring revenue, the way the way it's modeled. But our business, our building is only so big. There is a cap there. So one of the ways I attacked that was starting more businesses, and we'll get into what those are in a second. But the other reason is that I was bored. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm like almost all other small business owners, fairly squirrel brained, and I'm on the go 24/7. So as I continue to pull out of the business, my kids started getting older. I'm not changing diapers anymore. My kids are all in school, and I'm not doing anything at the studio during the day. And that, I mean, not entirely true, but I had some time. So, to fill my creative bucket and to keep going and to also fulfill the revenue piece, we started two different, it was three at one point. I dropped one of them. It wasn't getting the traction I wanted. But two other online dance adjacent businesses, very different. They're just all over the place because that's how my brain works. One is it's called Dancers in Balance, and this stems from a program that I built within the studio that I wanted to share with other studios in the world. And it's basically a journaling and growth mindset workshop type program that we implement in our studio with all of our dancers every week. So the kids who are less serious just had there's a word and their little cards, and we talk about different life skills and things like that. My more competitive kids who are here almost every day of the week have a weekly journaling session where we cover everything from self-esteem, like I said, growth mindset, emotion, mental health things, relationship building, leadership skills. We practice talking on a microphone. Like literally, it's just covering all those other things that kids need. And so I packaged that, wrote a book, put a program together, and we sell that to other dance studios around the world. And then the other one is an online course that teaches dance studios how to bring the class photography that they have to outsource every year in-house and manage and keep all of that revenue themselves. So you'd be surprised, there is a huge market for this. Most dance studios have horrible experiences with their photographers, and no slights of photographers. I just think they don't know what to do with us.
It's a very
Yeah,
specialized area
it's a
of
specialist area,
photography.
and it's different from regular school photography. It's even different from soccer photography. So I started doing it after my own frustration 12 or 13 years ago. And when I would tell people that we just did it ourselves, they'd be like, how? You need to tell us how to do this. And so I started helping a few friends, and it grew from there. And now we're looking at scaling that pretty big going into this year, and actually also branching out to the photographers with a different course to teach them how to help dance studios. So kind of growing that one as well.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I think it's really interesting too because like you said, the building has only so many hours it can be used
Mhm.
in the after school period, as well as, the number of heads you can put into classes and those kinds of things. So that revenue diversification is important.
Exactly. Yeah. And even within the studio, I mean, that's where the photography started. That's another huge revenue stream that happens 2, 3 times a year now that we can add to the bottom line. Speaking of hours, our daytime hours we filled with an academic preschool to capitalize on what we already have. And so even at that, even at all of the different creative ways that I will do everything I can to bring money into this building, there's still a limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And when did the preschool start? How long did it take before you decided that that would be a great alternate use?
Selfishly, it started when I needed a preschool for my kids.
The best way businesses are started.
Yep, yep. What do you need? Exactly. And I know you can speak to that as well. It's like what would make my life easier. And when they were my first two are very close together. They're only 15 months apart. And they were, when they were infants, we after trying the pack and play in my office for a while and that not being very successful, we converted a room here, like a closet basically, into what we called tot lot. And all the teachers paid into a shared nanny. And we had like a daycare actually at first, and then they got old enough to go to a preschool, and I had two other teachers that had kids around the same age, and we didn't really have anything local that we loved as far as options and um, price point. So we said, let's start our own. And it just grew from there. And now my youngest is 8. He's been out of the preschool for years. And every year they're like, are you going to keep doing this? Like, yes, yes, I am. It's quite profitable. We will keep doing
Yes,
this.
it makes business sense. I will keep doing it.
Yes. So there've been quite a few things over the years that selfishly I started. We started a theater program because one of my kids wanted to do drama classes. Like, sure, we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it fits well with all the other training that you're delivering.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you know when you need to level up. I mean,
yeah,
we talked about it being, related to an unmanageable schedule. That's certainly one way. But what are the other ways that you have sort of known that things needed to change?
sure. For me, I don't know if it's intuitive necessarily. I'm sure there's some intuition involved, but I can feel things breaking when when things are running smooth. There's a lull, there's a peace, there's a calm about the day to day. Now, because I know that our systems are solid. I know that I have the right people in place. We can sit in some comfort zone for a while. When we were at the beginning and growing and building systems, everything felt broken all the time. But I knew then that was my fault. The systems weren't in place. We knew we needed to fix things as they existed. And now I know that we're good at that. So when something stops working, it's like, okay, are we maxing out that software? Is the system we have for, recital check-in not going to work anymore because we have too many kids? Is the are the phones not being answered because my people are good now? I've gotten good there because we need to hire someone else. And as more and more of those start to kind of join the conversation, then we say, okay, what's the real issue here? Let's work backwards. What is at the root of this problem? And at this point, it's coming down to software and people. And the fact that sitting at around 2 million, we were still right in that sweet spot of what I would consider small business, where we're using like the free versions of things, and we're testing, we're able to watch the videos on the software to understand how to use it. At 3 million, at 1,000 students, at extra businesses, we now need the custom training. We now need the corporate level of that software. We now, and in some cases, we're not quite there yet, but like we have to, we just have to do it. Yeah. And I mean, even things like benefits and health insurance, like we've never, up until very recently, never even had to consider that. That wasn't on the table for my industry, for the way our people worked. But now I have more full-time employees. I have tons of full-time employees that aren't married. And again, my industry is unique. Most of my staff are women and they're married and they have healthcare. But now that's on the table. That's something I have to provide. And that's unique for my industry. So now learning and doing research and networking and figuring out how to make that work is my job full time now. I'm not teaching dance classes. I'm learning about health benefits.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, and you had mentioned to me when we chatted before about paying for software that you thought, like, a year ago you would have said, never going to do it.
Right. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Even as recently as today, I find myself finally at a point where I'm understanding that I can't do this myself. And that's I think where growth will be my next phase, where we're going to start even financially looking at capital investors, stepping up, looking at franchising, looking at buying new property. Those kind of things, for me, are evident of a next growth phase. And I could stop. We don't have to do that. I could live like this,
No, you could
you know?
sit with what you've got for sure. You've
And
got a great business.
yeah, and I like where we are, but I know my youngest, like I said, is 8, and I count the minutes we have on earth, like, and I know by the time he is graduating high school, I'm going to be bored out of my mind if this is what I'm still doing. And so then it'll be too late. So, how can I start leveraging my time that I have now to get to where I want to be so that, I've got my time filled then.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because you're showing that sort of duality of recognizing that for the business you have, you've got systems, stability, repetition, like all the things you need that have scaled it to where it is right now. But that you need something, but you're not going to come over here and play in the soup and mess with what you've
Mhm.
kind of got going on, which is working well.
Exactly, exactly. It could definitely mess things up. I love where we've built the business. I love what I'm able to offer. Like I said, my team, my staff, and they are my latest round of students. The way I look at it, like in 2 weeks, where I'm hosting a goal setting and planning retreat for my staff. Getting to live in that space where I am truly in the mentor role is so refreshing, and let them do the management now, because I'll say managing is probably my least favorite part of entrepreneurship. So the sooner I can get out of managing, the
Right.
better.
Well, and I think in some ways that's pretty common. The managing piece is
Yeah.
not what people sign up for when they imagine starting a business and having a dream.
Right. I've heard you say that before, that yeah, that we don't realize that it's going to get to that point where you're not going to get to do the thing you love forever. You have to manage other people doing the thing you love, which is almost kind of painful to watch, especially when we pull that ego piece back into it and think you could be doing it better. So learning how to train people to do it as good or better than you, and then stepping out of that role as quickly as possible really is kind of my
And learning
mission.
how to find something else that will light you up, that you can
Right.
go and follow the thread of without sort of tipping over what you've done already.
Yes, yes. Finding time to reflect and all of that, which again felt so woo-woo to me when I was younger and in the thick of things. It's like, I do not have time to reflect or meditate or, think about my year and make a word of intention and all of that. Like that is so against my common or like my core personality. But now I'm all about it. We're making words. We're doing exercises. We're into that professional development and really understanding. Taking the personality tests and the DISC assessments and understanding how we work, what motivates us. Love languages, anything I can get my hands on that helps me understand people and understand what motivates them and keeps me on a path of enthusiasm and excitement for the next thing and not getting kind of stuck in the rut.
Yep. So, what's 2024 about for you then?
So 2024 is about personal financial growth and freedom. Um, Up until now, it has been very much business focused. I'm very happy, like I said, kind of before I take that next jump in business growth. And if we were, like I said, to do the franchising and the growth and all that, that's a 2025 mission. We'll be acquiring the space next door to us in 2025 to grow our physical space. So the focus and energy will be there for sure. So 2024 is about personal wealth. And we have meetings. I took on a new financial planner, a new tax attorney, and a new um, estate planner. So we're getting our lives organized, our wills, our trusts, our C corp established, tax advance, just getting everything organized, which has been long overdue. But also not really, because it's not, we weren't sitting in wealth when I was in my 30s. So now it's
You
time,
weren't
get
in
organized.
disarray, but it was time to level up.
Yep, exactly. So that's the plan for 2024, is to just get really organized personally. And then so I can have the clear head to get back into the business in 2025 and see what that takes us. Like I said, the other business, the online dance photo pro is what that one's called. That one we're also scaling this year, but that it's so much easier than the dance studio. Um, Brick and mortar is a whole different beast. Um, there's just no comparison. Even though, yes, understanding funnels and webinars is complicated, it's nothing compared to managing 55 people working in a building. Nothing. So that will
That's
do.
back to the it's a lot of managing.
Yep. A lot of
Yeah.
managing, even, meeting the guy, the locksmith to fix the door. There's just so many more things that you don't think about. And there are some days I'm like, this was not in my job description. How did we get here? You know? And that's part of the fun for sure too. But one day, that's what it was the other day. I came in the morning and our cleaning person had the flu. And so, we distributed their work over a bunch of different people. But at some point in that process, the vacuum stopped working. But the message didn't get back to anybody because the cleaning person who was consistently there was not there. So at 7:30 in the morning, I was on my hands and knees picking dust bunnies and little hairballs off the floor in the lobby. I was just like, how did we get here? How, how and I never would have thought that this is what I would be doing, 22 years into business, but it's not perfect. Best laid plans, and I feel very confident that we do a great job, but there is a unique piece of running a small business, brick and mortar, that you still are in, you
Mhm.
know?
Yep. Yep. And so, yeah, it feels like this year you're in an exploration phase.
For
Feels like
sure.
you're
Research,
exploring things.
yep,
Mhm.
yep, learning, education, filling in those gaps. I was fortunate enough, like I said, my dad was in my ear growing up, but he was also such a good dad that he did too much for me. I've learned a lot of lessons in parenting, and that my boys now come to those. My two older boys will come to those financial planning meetings, because I knew nothing. I knew nothing about insurance. I knew nothing about investing. I knew nothing about real estate, um, taxes. Nothing. My dad always just helped and did them for me. I'm the oldest girl, three daughters, and he took care of us. But it's just like, now I feel like I'm starting over at 45. I'm learning what I should have learned at 25. Um, so I have the time and the bandwidth now to do that. And so that's the focus, and to pass that awareness and knowledge on to my kids is the goal.
That's amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing. Good. And so this year, what is the next big thing that you feel like you're going to tackle for the business?
So, in the growth that we'll see in 2025 physically, we will, obviously incur additional expenses. We'll have a build out cost. We'll have um, increased rent, mortgage. We own the business in a different or own the building in a different LLC. So rent slash mortgage, whatever you want to call it. Um, it will be diversifying again, finding programs, growing programs, so that when we move, we can absorb that additional expense. So we're growing that theater program I mentioned, so that we will have a little in-house black box theater in the new space, um, and really just getting excited about decorating a new lobby, because we'll be changing everything to the new space. So a little bit of fun built in there, but then just kind of grinding out growth and more students, and honing the marketing department, which is again a piece that small business owners that start a passion business tend to forget, that businesses are driven by sales and marketing. Um, and if I could go back and realize that that probably should have been the first person I hired 22 years ago, would be in a very different place.
That's an interesting observation, too, right?
Yep. Mm.
Back to those hard learnings that you now want to share with other people.
Yes, yes.
Sales and marketing, top of
Sales
the
and
list.
marketing. It's the backbones of a business, but for some reason, 90% of the dance studios I talk to, don't have someone doing that. The people do just come. Some people come to us organically, and we think if we do a good enough job, that will be good enough, and it's not, you know? And making that shift and having a dedicated department to that was one of the huge crossroads of growth for us. It was just a night and day, you know? Uh,
Right. In terms of, yeah, just having people coming through the door.
right, right. And mostly in small business industries, we're so focused on the people who leave because it's so personal. If you have 200
Mhm.
dancers and one quits to play soccer, like it's a painful thing. It's a hurt. It's a gut-wrenching experience for some reason. And again, over time, realizing that flip in mindset of like we are still a commodity. We are something that some people will love, some people will not. Find your ideal customer. Um, and even with your ideal customer, you're one of a million things kids can do after school. Like, we can do the best job in the world, but there is still a hefty attrition rate with those kind of things. And it's not reasonable to expect every 3-year-old to dance until they're 17. Like, so once you can get rid of that mindset and realize that we are like everything else, we need to just get people in the door, marketing, 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 sales, 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 and then, keep filling the bucket. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and you can do the job once they're in your doors.
Correct. Yeah. Have confidence in the
And so
product.
if they choose to go out, it's not about you.
Right. To an extent. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent. Sometimes it won't be the right fit, but
Correct. Yeah. And that mindset shift has been huge too. And then what's funny again with the management piece of it is once you make that mindset, you've got to sell that mindset to your whole team. And that's the part that's a little bit exhausting, I think, when it comes to management. It's not just the millennials who won't show up to work. Um, it's the it's everything else. It's getting people to buy into your ideas and your inspirations and not overwhelming them and not passing down your overwhelm and um
mhm.
it
Yeah, at some point you shift from where you're very small and you work your problems through with the team around you to where you have a conscious feeling of, I need to work this stuff out before I go to them.
yes,
There's some point where there's like a shift from that sort of like more small founding kind of team to where people are actually, looking to you as for expertise
correct.
and like what you're doing,
Yeah, and I
even though you may not.
You may not, but I do think even the ability to start having that shift comes with your own confidence. You've gotta do it for a few years. You have to make the mistakes yourself. You have to fail yourself up first to be able to say, "No, I did that. I've been there. This is what will happen. I am confident in this decision." And I know starting mine so young it took 10 years just to get to a point where my staff were younger than me for the most part. And that was a huge challenge at the beginning to have people working for me that had much more experience that did know better, and to expect them to listen to me. So, now I'm like the old lady around here. Um, it's great.
uh, well, and I do think it's interesting because as much as you maybe let your dad do things you wished you had learned along the way, I think that you had somebody you trusted who did gave you good advice and did the right things. And that's also incredibly important. Like just thinking about, the structure you referred to around owning the building in a different company and, some of the things that are important to get into place and that often seem we know they're important, but we don't want to have to deal with them.
Sure. Oh my gosh, yes. All of that is hard. And I think the the reason can be, twofold why people don't learn or do the right things. I mean, one, like you said, we just don't know any better. We don't know where to get that information. And I'm finding that still true to this day. They say surround yourself with people who are already at the level you want to be, but they're not knocking on your door. You
No.
have
And so how do you find them?
right. Finding them and asking the right questions. And then once you get in front of them, making sure that they see you as a valuable counterpart too, because they're also trying to level up, right? And so I found that's been difficult, especially, I'm an introvert. I don't love networking. That's not my wheelhouse. So that's been for sure a difficult piece of this puzzle. But then, back then, just being overwhelmed with the day to day and the busyness, you do things as quick and as easy as you can because you just don't have the time to do the research and the education and to learn. And so that's why it didn't even occur to me to fight back with my father for all those years, because like he was taking care of it and getting it done. Great, enjoy. Um, Even to the point where he was doing my bookkeeping for so long, and it wasn't until I finally realized that some things were questionable that I needed to step in and learn that. And that took 3 years to learn how to do my bookkeeping. That I couldn't have done in those first few years anyway. It was just too much. So,
Things we never thought we would have to learn in life.
right. And things they don't teach you, even if you have a dance degree. I'm sure you didn't learn bookkeeping in your dance degree, you know? So I wish there was a way to help shift that conversation, make people realize really what truly is important. But same thing, actually went to school. I have a biology and a chemistry degree. I was going to be a dentist. And I know for a fact that they don't teach you how to own a dental practice in dentistry school. you know, you learn how to be a dentist, and I think that shift for sure needs to happen. And I don't see it happening anytime soon.
No, but it is interesting, I think, across businesses to find those universal pieces, right? Like figuring out how to sell your product and market yourself is always going to be important, no matter what business that you're in. Figuring out how to scale, how to delegate, systems, processes, it's all the same.
It is. It is. It's fascinating how similar it is. Um, no matter what we're doing. My sister is in recruiting. She works for a huge recruiting firm. She places C-suite level employees, makes millions of dollars a year, and she has the same problems I have. And we joke about it. It's like, maybe I should have sold something more expensive. But
No, I think it is fascinating though, just to see a window into what it's like with what you're doing in dance and dance education and preschool education, and thinking about what your big gorgeous goals are for the future and where you're headed. And to talk today about how we can all try and do it a little bit more gracefully.
Mm, yeah, for sure. I think part of that is that reflection piece, taking stock, remembering where you were. It's hard coaching with the studios that I work with because they're at every point in the past. But as long as I stay grounded in those mistakes that I made and remembering what it felt like to be there, it's so easy to help them because I genuinely feel the pain that they went through. I think it's easy once you've found success and found your way out of that kind of darkness to forget what you went through. You're having a little amnesia about it, but I definitely try to stay grounded in the process.
That's great. I think that's great advice is to have a great process around look back, look forward, look down at your feet and look at where you're at right now. It is really easy to forget how far you've come.
Yeah, we celebrate wins a lot. That's something I learned through one of the masterminds that I'm a part of is, we start every meeting with what went well, what's going well, what are you grateful for? Remembering all the things that are good because we're about to get into all the problems. We'll hash out the issues all day long. But let's not forget what's going really, really well and how we got here. So
That's great.
I
Good.
agree.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm very excited to see what your explorations of 2024 lead to for you in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'll be following your journey as well. I love it, and I love the conversations that you have. So I'm honored to have been here.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you won't miss any episodes. Figure 8 isn't just a podcast. It's a way of seeing the big, gorgeous goals of women entrepreneurs coming to life. If you're interested in learning more, you can find my book, Big Gorgeous Goals, on Amazon anywhere you might live. For more about my growth and leadership training programs, visit www.julieellis.ca to see how we might work together. Read my blog, or sign up to get your free diagnostic. Are you ready for growth? Once again, that's www.julieellis.ca. When we work together, we all win. See you again soon for another episode of Figure 8.